Welcome to the City Commission meeting, Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. Before we start our meeting, I'd just like to introduce you all to Danielle Doolin, who's our new city manager. I told her she's really smart. She started on a holiday yesterday, and that's the way to go. Okay, would you call the order, please?
Mayor Pro Tem McCullough,
Yes.
Commissioner Opel,
Here.
Commissioner Motta,
Here.
Commissioner Minton.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem, we have 4 commissioners present. The quorum of 3 is met.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have to recognize the city's Public Work Utilities Department. Would you join me, please? Come on up, guys. Great. I'll tell you, this is a tongue twister of it. all these, okay, we'll try it out. Good to have you all. Thank you for coming. The City of Manhattan's recently reorganized Department of Public Utilities has received several state and national awards for excellence in wastewater treatment processes. Manhattan was selected as the 2024 recipient of 2 awards this year from the Kansas Water Environment Association, KWEA. The city received both the Class 5 Wastewater Treatment Plant Award for plants that process more than 5 million gallons per day, and the Outstanding Biosolids Management Program. The city previously was honored in 2010, 11, 15, 21, and 22 for its biosolids program, and it also received the Class 5 awards in 2021, I think I was there then, 22, and 2015 honorable mention. Randy DeWitt, the city's Assistant Director of Public Works for Water and Wastewater, and Environmental Compliance Manager, Abdul Durar. Abdul and I were early Prius buyers, and we used to compare how well we were doing. Along with Senior Biosolids Lift Station Technician Daniel Tidwell, there's Daniel, good, received the awards on behalf of the city at the August 27th awards luncheon in Wichita. The city's wastewater treatment plant, WWTP, was also honored by the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, NACWA, okay, during the July 24th ceremony in NACWA's 2024 Utility Leadership Conference in Buffalo, New York. The wastewater treatment plant was recognized by NACWA for its outstanding level of compliance and performance related to its National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, permit. The NPDES permit is required for wastewater treatment facilities to discharge into waters of the United States. It outlines requirements that ensure discharges do not harm water quality or human health. The plant was awarded the NACWA Peak Performance Platinum Award for achieving 100% compliance at the gold level with no permit violations for the entire 6-year period, 2018 to 23. This is the 2nd consecutive year that the wastewater treatment plant received the National NACWA Award. In 2023, the city received the Peak Performance Platinum Award, PDF, for the 5 calendar years from 18 to 22. NACWA is proud to present this year's Peak Performance Awards to the extraordinary members' utilities whose unyielding dedication to providing reliable clean water services has enhanced the environment and the quality of life for millions across the country, said NACWA Chief Executive Officer Adam Krentz. This esteemed recognition underscores their commitment to providing outstanding service and the vital role clean water utilities play in serving their respective communities. Randy, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Niles. I'm the Director of Utilities. I'm really proud to be part of this group. I was not here when they won this award, but I told each and every one of them when I came on board that one of the reasons why I decided to take this position as Director of Utilities for the City of Manhattan was based off the facilities in which I toured. Their water plant, their wastewater plant, everything that I looked at was immaculate, was in great operational condition, and that just speaks to the character and the ability of everybody standing up here this evening. So thank you guys, well deserved, and I appreciate everything that you do for us.
Randy DeWitt, Assistant Director of Utilities. I just want to say that these awards aren't about the facilities, they're about the people. So these people are the people that deserve the credit. So we've got staff supervisors, we've got environmental compliance staff, we've got numerous operators and maintenance staff at these facilities, but it's not just the wastewater plant. We have wonderful people at all of our facilities on the water side. This is about support staff throughout City Hall and throughout the utilities divisions that help us out. So credit goes to the people. It's not the facilities, it's the people. So thank you.
Abdul Darar, the Environmental Compliance Manager. Again, I want to stress the same thing, that this is not about the award, it's about the staff that I have the pleasure to work with. They're hard workers, they're committed, and it's a pleasure to work with them, and I'm happy that we won this award, and we pledge you that we will continue to apply for them and hopefully have more in the future.
At Brenda's recommendation, we'll just introduce everybody here. So on the end is Dan Tidwell. He is our biosolids lift station technician. He's primarily responsible for operating and maintaining everything at the biosolids farm. Next to him, we've got Jaden Groney. He's an environmental compliance specialist focusing on the water, but also helping out with the wastewater. Next to him is Tim Mangus, also environmental compliance specialist. Next to him is Ben Patterson, environmental compliance specialist, focusing on wastewater. You met Abdu. Then we have Eugene Moorhead. He's our plant operations supervisor. And then Tim Rickew, he's our plant maintenance supervisor. And then Gary Dickinson is our supervisor overseeing biosolids and lift stations. So a lot of experience over there.
Taking the proclamation with me. We have one proclamation tonight for Veterans Day. Would those people join me, please? Just one? Proclaim this and then we'll let you speak. Okay. Whereas Veterans Day has its origins in the November 11th, 1918 armistice, which brought World War I to a conclusion, and the Allied victory of World War I affirms the strength of great nations acting together for high purposes. And whereas the people of the United States caused, through their elected representatives, the designating of November 11th as a federal legal holiday, which in 1954 became officially known thereafter as Veterans Day. And whereas Veterans Day continues to be celebrated and commemorated with solemn observances in honor of all Americans who have served their country in times of war and conflict, and Veterans Day has become a significant part of our American heritage as we recognize the millions of our citizens whose military service has had a profound effect on history. And whereas the courage, honor, sacrifice, and dedication which veterans of the United States Armed Forces have displayed in the cause of justice, freedom, and democracy are most worthy of recognition. Now, there I, for Karen McCullough, acting for Mayor Adam Check, Mayor of the City of Manhattan, do hereby call upon all citizens to commend America's veterans and observe Monday, November 11th, 2024, as Veterans Day. and ask that the day be preserved with appropriate ceremonies in honor of those who have served to preserve our principles of justice, freedom, and democracy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please. There's lots going on, I know.
Oh, yes. All right, so my name's Ron Atkinson. I'm the Vice President of the Flint Hills Veterans Coalition. And so I'm just here just to share with you a little bit about what we do on Veterans Day, if that's okay. Okay, so the Flint Hills Veterans Coalition is renowned locally for producing the largest annual Veterans Day parade in the state of Kansas. But there's more to this club than meets the eye. All right, the club members ranging from their middle 30s to their mid-80s, without exception, are deeply involved as community volunteers for organizations ranging from the Red Cross to the Manhattan Arts Center. But it is the camaraderie, the easy laugh, the good-natured ribbing of the Veterans Coalition that keeps them coming to meetings and working so tirelessly on annual Veterans Day Parade and all our other community projects. The Flint Hills Veterans Coalition was formed in 1993 to foster patriotism and to honor and perpetuate the memory of the area veterans' service to the country through the promotion of Veterans Day activities, providing scholarships for veterans, and other good works. This year, the Flint Hills Veterans Coalition will once again sponsor the Veterans Day Parade in Manhattan, Kansas on November 11th, traveling from the mall to City Hall. Our parade will begin at 9:30 a.m. in the Manhattan Town Center and travel down Poyntz Avenue, ending at the Manhattan City Hall. Patriotic displays of the Veterans Corps organizations, marching bands, civic groups, business, and even the Mounted Color Guard from Fort Raleigh speak of the Flint Hills' love of this country and appreciation of those that have defended it. Following the parade at 11 a.m. inside the City Hall building, where we are today, will be the Veterans Day ceremony honor at the Peace Memorial Auditorium. This year, the theme of the day is Veterans Helping Veterans. Our guest speaker will be Captain Retired Mike Riley, a VFW District 4 Commander. And Mike also served in the United States Marine Corps and is a Vietnam veteran. Patriotic music and essays by Manhattan school children and round out the afternoon celebration. But there's more. Start the day with the delicious breakfast at the American Legion Peace Keller, post set number 17 at 114 McCall Road, and from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Partner with the Knights of Columbia 4th Degree Monsignor Lucky Assembly. Veterans can fill up on biscuits and gravy for free, all right? While the public is charged a small fee, like $5. All right, so finally, from November the 4th through the 11th, please stop by and enjoy the patriotic military exhibits at the Manhattan Senior Center at 301 North 4th Street and the Manhattan Town Center, 3rd Street main entrance, and in store windows on down Poyntz Avenue. We invite you to discover the proud history of our local veterans as you enjoy the display boards and military exhibits throughout the downtown Manhattan. So it is with great pride and gratitude that I accept this proclamation on behalf of our President, Christine Benny, and the Flint Hills Veterans Coalition. We invite you to join us as we celebrate our nation's veterans at the parade and all our activities in Manhattan on November 11th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Okay, we have public comments. We have two people signed up. Mick Charney.
Mick Charney, 1420 Waterford. I'm also on the HRB, but I speak tonight in my capacity as an art and architectural historian. And if it's appropriate, and if you don't mind, I'd like to pick up on my comments that I made at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, because there are a couple of pages that I didn't quite get to, and I just wanted to explain them a little bit. I think they're fairly self-explanatory, but one page, a couple pages dealt with an article called 9 Tips on Preserving Cemeteries. And while those 9 tips are not the official criteria by which a cemetery is nominated to the state or national registers, there are 9 boxes there, and I can easily check most of them as having already been accomplished. And those that I can't fully check as being accomplished yet, I think they're under serious consideration in one capacity or another. The other item that I handed out was, I think, a 39-page, double-sided 39-page bulletin, number 41, from the National Register of Historic Places that talks specifically about how to go about nominating a cemetery as a historic district. And I hope you've had a chance or will have a chance to go through these documents before any final decisions are made. If I could briefly summarize the 4 criteria under which a cemetery can be nominated, they are A, first of all, an association with important events that have made a contribution to our understanding of the historic and cultural patterns of either the local, regional, or national levels. Criterion B, an association with significant people who are significant to our past, our historical past. Criterion C, distinctive characteristics or elements of a cemetery that are of high artistic value. And this one I want to concentrate on a little bit because I think that will be the major criteria given how beautiful Sunset Cemetery is. And then criteria D, which is the cemetery is likely yielding information in the future pertaining to prehistory or the history of that cemetery. And so overall, what I'm arguing for is that before we make any rash decisions about what to add to the cemetery, we need to be conscious of retaining the historic integrity of the cemetery in order to better its chances when and if it is nominated to the state and national registers. And so to that end, I would like to encourage you all to attend this Saturday, October 19th, from 10 a.m. until 12 noon, the third annual Sunset Cemetery Walking Tour, which I hope will elucidate some of these points that I've made in more detail. And in particular, I hope that you'll come away with a better understanding, if you haven't already been through the cemetery, of its major significant features, of its very distinctive, unique, gorgeous landscape, of the beautiful vistas and the spatial sequencing, the artfulness of all of that, and hopefully come away understanding why Columbaria should not necessarily be built on that grassy hillock upon which Paisley Tower sits. And so I don't know whether or not Mayor Adamczyk received the handouts that I passed out last time. She did? Good. Okay, but I brought an extra copy just in case. And I plan to be a little bit of a nuisance the next few regular meetings of the City Commission, delivering to you in small bits and pieces other information about the nomination process for cemeteries, including why and how the work on the cemetery as well as the nomination can go ahead simultaneously, and also explain to you the significance of our being designated a CLG, a certified local government, but I'll address that next time. So thank you very much for your attention, and I forgot to say it last time, but good evening, commissioners, and good evening, our new city manager.
Thank you, Mick.
Okay.
I had occasion to be in the Abilene Cemetery last week, and they are also interested in doing historic thing. And of course, they have some Eisenhower relatives buried there, which of course makes it interesting. But I was really interested to see that we would be sort of the furthest west to do this, and that many, because we're really an old cemetery, I went to the Abilene webpage, and I was very impressed, and they talked about visitors when I was there that they have, so I don't want to say it's a tourism thing, but it does receive visitors.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Gary?
My name is Gary Olds. I live at 3308 Frontier Circle. I'm very encouraged because that was just a monologue during public comments, which is very rare, which is refreshing that you have a response to that. I told you 2 weeks ago that I would be here to discuss the Riley County Law Board and specifically its makeup. I want to encourage you again. In fact, I may be, as he is, friendly pestering you with regards to this issue. The reason I bring it up is I think it's very important that if we're going to be taxed, we are taxed by representatives who are elected. The law board does not consist of all elected officials. The statute I read today, it's very enlightening. If you're curious and you want to write it down and read it yourself, or anyone in the audience, it's KSA 1944-27. I would encourage you to read it because it has some enlightening things that I did not know, which I think are quite remarkable, frankly. If you read it, the two members at-large members that the city commission appoints are supposed to be residents of the city, which they are. The member that the county appoints is supposed to be a resident of the county, which implies a non-city resident. Not how it's been, but that's why we have lawyers to interpret those things or discuss those things to guide you and make decisions with regards to that. But the most interesting thing I found about this statute that I didn't know, and I was incorrect on the issue of Ogden that we talked about earlier, because I was reading the overall first part of it that pertains to the theory, I guess you could say, of the law. It says that I didn't realize you meet on the second Monday of each year, or maybe it's every other year, to make those selections as a joint board, county and city board. But then it goes on to say that whenever there shall be presented to the county election official of any such county a petition signed by the qualified electors of such county equal in number to not less than 10% of the electors of the county who voted on the office of Secretary of State at the last preceding general election, requesting a special election on the proportion of electing the members of the law board agency of such a county to be held at the next time of a next primary in August of an even-numbered year. Such specialist, in other words, to eliminate all the legalese, is we as citizens can petition, I believe, Rich Fargo, with 10% of the last election and say, we're not doing it that way anymore. We're going to create a law board that's elected just like you are elected. And actually, in my opinion, that's probably the best way to do it. So I want to encourage you to avoid that as you get to this next appointment or next round of appointments in 2025 or 2026. Pick one another. All of you, that would be 3 from this board, should be on the law board. And there should be 2, actually it's every other year. Some years it's 3, some years it's 2. But you all should be elected officials, because I think it's once again important, as you might remember from your history class in whatever grade it was, one of the objections to King George's actions was taxation without representation. And that's where we are, and we have been since 1974, I believe. Now, it could be argued, well, there's a majority of elected officials on it, but do you realize that 3 non-elected officials and 1 more elected official could pass any budget for RCPD? That's pretty significant. That's pretty scary. And I think it's important that you really stew on that. Talk with the county commission, see if, and I'm going to talk to them as well, see if they're willing to only appoint elected officials to the position. The statute doesn't prohibit that because all of you live in the city, okay, and that qualifies. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, Karen, because you and I have been around a long time, that's the way it used to be a long time ago until there was objections. But remember now, there's a Citizens Advisory Committee for our CPD Law Board, and therefore citizen input comes in a different channel. So once again, please do that. And lastly, in my last 15 seconds, I'm not able to be here for the Commerce Bank building, and I know it's on the agenda, but I have to pick up a grandson at a prompt time, according to my wife. And you know what it's like if you're late. Please negotiate. Don't roll over. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Do we have any other public comment?
For the Commerce Bank?
What, go ahead.
No, not yet. Thank you.
Amber Starling, 408 Houston Street. 2 weeks ago, Gary Old stood before you and accused you rightly of gross negligence in not actually holding a state and federally regulated tax hearing. That is grounds for recall for each and every one of you. Jessica Winters stood before you and told you that you deliberately violated her First Amendment rights 4 weeks ago by refusing to accept her legal address and let her speak as a lawful third-generation Manhattan resident. That is grounds for a lawsuit. And our mayor is still conspicuously absent. I know you will not answer my questions because you never do, but I will ask the question that the entire town is currently asking. Where the hell is our mayor?
Are there things that don't apply to anything on the agenda? Okay, commissioner comments.
Yeah, I got a couple. Last week, I was at the ribbon cutting for Innovate 24, which used to be called Spark. It's a offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce that is specifically to help small businesses start and expand here in Manhattan. Excuse me. They opened a standalone location on 12th Street just outside of Aggieville. They're co-located with the Small Business Development Center, so just want to congratulate them. Stephanie Pierce specifically is the director of that. It's a really great organization. If you are looking to start or expand your small business, absolutely go and talk to them. They've got a lot of great resources, and they'll give you a lot of help. And then I want to congratulate downtown Manhattan. Downtown was awarded the
Great places.
Great Places Award by the Kansas chapter of American Planning Association. So that's a really, really nice feather in our cap. Gina, you definitely have outdone yourself with all of your programming and the things that you do for downtown. So thank you for that. Finally, Saturday at 9 o'clock, I am going to be having coffee at Blue Stem Bistro in Aggieville. Don't have anything formal planned, just going to be there. Come and have a conversation, get a coffee or don't, but really just would like to be available for folks to come and have a chat and have some good constructive dialogue. So hope to see everybody there. Gary was the only one to show up last time. It was a great conversation, but love to see more people there.
Are you treating? Okay, the Kansas chapter of American Planning Association gave Downtown Manhattan Award, but also the City of Manhattan, and Stephanie Peterson was there to receive that award, so that was part of the whole thing. Adabus is having some citizen input meetings on the 22nd at the Douglas Center between 4 and 6:30. They're also having one in Ogden and Junction City. You can check their website for more information, but if you have some thoughts about public transportation, that's the place to go. Okay, anything else? No more, that's it. Oh, our mayor is attending the AUSA, American
Association
Association of the United States Army, thank you, as our representative, and it's very important that we have those good relationships with Fort Riley, and to see a number of people who have lived in Manhattan, Fort Riley before, and to kind of reconnect, and a member of the Chamber of Commerce who are with her too, and we appreciate her going. Okay, consent agenda. Thoughts, questions? None?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda. Oh, public comment.
I do that. That's right. No public comment. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Would you call the roll?
Commissioner Opel,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Minton,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McCullough.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, now we move on to the general agenda. We're going to consider the 2022 audit.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor Pro Tem. And my name is Rena Neal, and I am the Director of Finance for the City of Manhattan. I will be presenting the 2022 City Audit. I also have Dr. Higgins, who is our Chair of the Municipal Audit Committee, here to provide some comments as well. Commissioner Motta serves on that Municipal Audit Committee, as well as Rich Jankovic and Aaron Von Felt. So the Finance Department works with Allen Gibbs and Hulick out of Wichita. to collaborate on the preparation of our work papers and the trial balances. We've been working with them since about 2021. Our financial statements were audited by BT & Co. out of Topeka. And for your review in your packet, you would have received the annual comprehensive financial report link, which includes the independent auditor's report, a report to the city commission, and then a passenger facility charge report, which is related to our Manhattan Regional Airport. Our financial statements were presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with GAAP, and we received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest audit opinion. The city had two findings, which can be found on pages 151 through 161 of the report, and a management response and corrective action plan have been provided. And here are the two findings that were included related to internal controls over financial reporting. There were no material weaknesses, non-compliance material to financial statements, none, and it just had to do with the timing and the thoroughness of when we are providing the information to the auditors. We've been talking to AGH and working with the auditors in terms of compiling a complete package of that information when we submit to them. And then for the federal awards piece, it's related to CDBG FATA report, which CDBG staff and community development has already worked on getting those up to date, as well as completing a checklist to move forward with compliance in that regard. In the financial report, these are the sections broken out, and the ones that are most important for you to read is about a 200-page document, but especially the financial section and the notes to the financial statements, and then also our statistical section and our single audit section.
Are you going to expand on the notes to the notes at the end, that, go back one page. The notes to the financial statements.
Yeah, I can go over that
That'd be great.
once I'm done with the
Okay, sorry.
presentation. That's fine. The schedule of expenditures and federal awards is also a part of our audit, and it's a part of the single audit. And in 2022, the city had about $5.96 million in federal expenditures, and the list provided Department of HUD, Department of Transportation, Treasury, U.S. Small Business Association, Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Homeland Security. The major programs that were evaluated were CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Program, our Airport Improvement Program, and then the Disaster Grants Public Assistance, which is related to FEMA through KDM, which is a pass-through grant related to the 2018 disaster that we had in town. And so those are the expenditures, and then the percent of the federal expenditures listed above. So as we prepare for the 2023 audit, we'll be meeting with departments to discuss our grants received in 2023, which we've already done that, as well as the new GASB 96 pronouncement related to reporting of all of our subscriptions that we have, from something as minute as a Pandora account at the airport to have music while our patrons are waiting for a plane, to our new financial software. Implement software that will aid in the calculations for the GASB 96 subscription accounting reporting requirement, and then we will work with AGH, which we've already started doing for the 2023 audit. BT & Co. has already started testing our payroll and non-payroll transactions and the schedule of expenditures and federal awards for 2023. I will go over the notes section that Commissioner McCullough has asked. Let me bring up the website. Thank you, Jared, for helping me. I knew they would ask. So here's our comprehensive financial report, table of contents, and then the introductory section, which are is a letter from city staff, management, discussing the activity of our community. And then we get into org chart, who the elected officials were, and then the auditor's report. And then I want to get into the management's discussion and analysis, which is a summary of a lot of the financial statement information that's reported, and have graphs and things of that nature. here's the financial statements. And so the notes to the financial statements are an accompaniment to the financial statements. They should be read in conjunction with the financial statements. So as I mentioned earlier, if anything, the financial statements and the notes are the two most important things to pay attention to. And so it provides a little bit more detail in terms of the figures that are provided within the notes, and there's mandatory disclosures that we have to provide. So here are the notes, and they begin on page 45 of the PDF, 31. And so is there any particular note that you wanted to, we have to report it every year. It's the same type of information, just updated with the financial statement numbers. It just talks about policies, and then it also goes into our various reporting requirements.
Are we going to go into more detail on the findings later, or?
We can, it's at the end in the single audit section.
Okay.
I mean,
I was just curious, just kind of about like the more specifics about it.
these are the two findings, but did you have any additional comments, Commissioner McCullough, regarding the notes?
You have questions?
She was asking if you had
I'm
questions.
sorry. No, I mean, I have some questions, but I just wanted to make clear to the public that that's available and they can look it over, and probably people who have more accounting background than I do. But I always look at the auditor's notes to make sure, because they suggest things that we maybe could do better.
So the notes are not that portion of the audit. The report, they do have information in the report, but of most important is the information that's presented in the single audit in the schedule of expenditures and federal awards, and they talk about the
notes
two.
are not publicly available.
No, that's not what I said.
Oh, they're not
The
part of
two
the audit.
findings are what is, I'm getting ready to go over, Mel. So that's what's of most important in terms of if people wanted to know what the auditors had to say in terms of corrective action or anything like that. So Commissioner Opelt, you had a question about the two findings.
Yeah, so just kind of, can you just kind of tell me more in, like I'm five, what it means that the auditors identified material adjustments that were made to financial statement? Is that just like there was an error that was found, or what does that mean?
So we attempt in terms of the city staff to prepare as much as we can internally. Sometimes we will have AGH review our work. Sometimes AGH prepares the documents and sends it over. And so we had to make adjustments as we were going through the audit in terms of just correcting balances. So that's where that comes from.
Okay. And then the federal award findings, we just had a report that got filed late for the,
Yes,
okay. But it was filed, right?
yes, it has been filed.
Okay. Cool. That's kind of, yeah, like I figured that was kind of the important part is the findings, right? Like,
Yes,
okay. Thank you.
we always can stand room for improvement. So, are there any other questions?
How's the 23 audit coming?
We've started.
That's good.
Our goal is to have at least the actual work papers and everything completed before the end of the year. We're working towards it.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Is there any public, thank you.
I have
Oh, go ahead.
Dr. Higgins from the Municipal Audit Committee here to provide comments as well. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Rena.
You're
You do a
welcome.
great job, as always. I'd like to thank the members of the committee, as you mentioned, Rich Jankovich, Aaron Von Feld, and Commissioner Mata for serving on this committee. So the purpose of the committee, I know some of the questions here obviously are relevant to our committee. So the purpose of our committee is to review the scope and procedures of the audit with our auditors and with the city staff to make sure everything is adequately covered. We review the audit findings that you saw there, and we provide recommendations to help improve processes and deal with those identified deficiencies that were mentioned. So to deal with a couple of those, first, I think the main issue that we've had, and obviously with this being a little bit late and same with 2023, is just the lack of staff, the inability to hire people to fill these vacant positions. And of course, a certain amount of that is the salary that's paid by our city in these positions. The accounting market is highly competitive. And so it's a tough market to hire in. It just is. It's a fact of life. And so having those open positions makes it difficult for Rena and a short staff to try to get those things together. I mean, if you saw some of the things that she mentioned, the new GASB 96, the one that they added in, GASB 87, these are frankly just onerous accounting regulations that really don't add a lot of value, but they take a lot of time. And so, I think that needs to be recognized in terms of that. And if we had full staff, I'm sure that some of these issues of getting things on time, getting them correct would be eliminated. That's one of the reasons we have AGH help us with this, to make sure we get things correct. In addition to obviously, this part of the thing, she has a full-time job too, managing the finances of the city. And with the 2023 audit is going to be out for, 3 weeks here coming up with this new transition of software and other things. So it's a difficult task to get that done. Regarding the grants, we had this come up several years ago, and we recommended the creation of a very simple form for all of the department heads that are receiving grants to fill out, that they recognize the steps that they have to follow in the grant process. So we have that check in place. Now, that doesn't mean it always happens or always happens in a timely fashion, and I think that's what happened in this particular case, which was unfortunate but fixed pretty quickly. But overall, I would say that, the audit report was very good, and the findings are not anything that I would be particularly concerned about and fairly easily addressed. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or discuss some of these issues further with you, but I appreciate the opportunity. And it is a great opportunity to have public input on this process, which is an important thing.
You need to turn out more accountants.
Well,
Business school.
I'm a finance guy, so
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank you.
So, are there any public comments on the audit? I think Rena's done a super job. Do I hear a motion to receive the results?
I gotta read it, sorry. I move we receive the results of the 2022 city audit.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Minton,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McCullough,
Yes.
Commissioner Opelt.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
The next item on our agenda is Visit Manhattan third quarter update. Now that we're a great place, it should be great.
We're a great place. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Welcome, Danielle. I'm Marcia Roselle, Director of Visit Manhattan. Just always a great reminder, our mission is to bring in visitors that will spend outside dollars here locally. We have a great steering committee who advise us on the use of the transient guest tax dollars that are allotted to Visit Manhattan. And Scott Sieben, who's here in the audience, is owner of Mr. K's Rocking K's and is our chairman for this steering committee. Smith
Travel research provides us with the best data on how our 13 hotel properties are performing as key indicators of visitors in town that are sleeping in hotels. Monthly occupancy was up for July and August this year, and we are at a 65% occupancy. And just a reminder, we get the previous month's data on the 20th of the month. This graph shows our year-to-date occupancy. We are at 58% full for the 24 years to date. And you'll note that 2023 was a strong year for travel, rebounding high after the 3 previous years. 24 is showing a re-leveling of our new normal for travel. Revenue for the properties was at $21.3 million, resulting in $1.6 million in transient guest tax collected to date. The average daily rate for a hotel here in Manhattan is a little over $116, which is up $5 over 2023. And the revenue per room, the RevPAR, is at $68 year to date, and this is down almost $4 from 2023. AirDNA reports show the short-term rentals in Manhattan. The number of short-term rentals continues to increase over the previous 5 years. In August, there was 310 active listings. Currently, the supply is a little over 52 room nights for the year in short-term rentals versus 300,000 in hotel rooms for the year. This inventory is 17% of where visitors can sleep in Manhattan.
Did you mean 52,000 room nights?
52,000 room nights, if
Okay.
you think about every day, year to date. Yeah.
I thought you said 52.
Oh, I'm sorry, 52,000, 52,000. And the occupancy is at 58% for August and 49% for the year to date, which is lower than at a hotel. The revenue from the AirDNA report shows that over $4.3 million and that results in $324,000 into the TGT collection. And just to note, the average daily rate for a room at an Airbnb, VBRO, any of the short-term rentals is $167, with the RevPAR at $82, which is higher than at a hotel. Our sales team works diligently to book 214 meetings and sporting events into the future. This exceeds what they have done over the last year, so that's great. I'm also pleased to announce that we've added a service coordinator to our team, Julie Valdeprez, and this is the first time we've had that position filled since 2020. She's a bonus to making sure our planners have what they need to host outstanding meetings in Manhattan so that they will return time and time and again. This graph just shows our room nights booked for the future at over 30,000. And our future meetings and sports will have an estimated economic impact of $15.9 million for Manhattan. More meetings were held in the third quarter than the previous 5 years. And Jen Alley, our convention sales manager, has booked 37 meetings with more attendees, resulting in a higher impact. And that's all for future business. This is a great slide that just shows the KEMSA conference. That's the Kansas Emergency Medical Service Association. They had 8 vehicles inside the Manhattan Conference Center, and they had their new Children's Mercy ambulance there. And also the picture is of the Association of Community Mental Health Centers of Kansas, where they had over 550 in attendance. We are reporting more sporting events in this third quarter with the inclusion of K-State's home games for all the fall games. Lauren Chard, our sports sales manager, has booked 26 events into the future, and you can see those numbers there. Highlights for the third quarter sports include the Kanza 25K and 10K out at the Kanza Prairie. Catfish chasers were at Tuttle Creek Lake. And then, of course, K-State football started. Last quarter, I shared all that the CVB does, and I just wanted to share a bit more about our marketing efforts. So this is one of our digital marketing contracts. It's with WIBW Gray Digital Media. From the second quarter reports, we saw 1.67 million impressions from this campaign in Wichita and Kansas City. And this cost for this digital marketing comes at almost $82,000, and that's just since April. If we were to include additional cities, we'd add Omaha, Lincoln, and Oklahoma City, and this is where marketing funds would be spent. Regularly, we get sales calls for printed pieces. So this is just USA Today travel. The shelf life on a magazine is much shorter, and it's not as targeted, so it's a broader targeting than with digital ads. So we did decline the 1/4 page at $5,500. You might not be aware, but we have 9 billboards across the state. They range from $200 to just over $1,000 per month in rent. With our new Manhattan marketing campaign, we've wrapped 3 of the 9. We've got 6 more to go. Our total budget for billboards is at $74,000. We produce our Manhattan Visitors Guide in-house, saving design costs, and we print, and the mailing budget for this piece is $86,000. On September 6th, on behalf of Visit Manhattan, I accepted the inaugural Tourism Award. It's the Tourism Impact Award from the Kansas Department of Commerce and the Office of Minority and Women Business Development for our outstanding achievements this past year. Our Manhappiness marketing campaign was what grabbed their attention, and it was wonderful to be acknowledged for the work that we do promoting Manhattan as the best place to visit in the state. This is a new slide. We just got this data yesterday from the Tourism Economic Report for 2023. Manhattan experienced solid spending, 6% over last year. $227.3 million is now our new high water mark for spending by visitors in Manhattan. So, Manhappiness. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
So, in the past, CVB has reported on per visitor spend. Do you do any of that? Do you collect any of that anymore?
We have that in our system, so I know what we allot for the estimated economic impact.
Okay.
So for a conference attendee, we use a number of $286 per night per attendee.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have that kind of data that I can get to you if you need
Okay,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That might be useful in our conversation for
Sure.
metrics next year. I think it's kind of an easy thing to extrapolate direct benefit to this, financial benefit to the city organization itself, and
Sure.
It's easy for that to kind of put together, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Obviously, we had the Art and Light Museum this
did. The
weekend.
gala,
That was
yeah.
very impressive. Just wondering if any comments of how you'll work that into your plans. That's a
Oh.
heck of an event space down there.
It is a wonderful event space, and you're absolutely right. The gala was Saturday night. They are having their opening for the public on November the 8th, and so we will definitely be marketing that. That will be center page of our visitor's guide for next year, and it's an easy thing to promote. It's going to be a big draw for visitors to come to Manhattan. Yeah.
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
I saw that tourism thing that came out of Topeka, that tourism brings in $13.2 billion. So what percentage of that do we get? Obviously, Johnson County's going to get a...
Sure. Yeah, so ours for 2022, for 2023, there was $227 million
Okay.
that came in, yeah.
Yeah. I think, too, that, you've done a great job. And to encourage more tourism is difficult because you're hitting, I think, all the bases. And there's only in Kansas, most groups have a certain number of people, and there aren't too many places that can handle that many people and you know, that kind of thing. But I do think maybe we need to start thinking outside the box a little bit. And I really think it's important, and Erin's here, that we get the second disc golf thing up in Warner Park, and so we can have some disc golf tournaments. And pickleball, they're having national tournaments now.
They
And the
are.
other thing is, I have a really good friend who lives in Canada, but he was in Tucson for something, and he drives an electric car. And getting through Idaho with an electric car is not easy. But, you know, I thought, why don't we have some, Harrington has stations. I mean,
And we do have some electric
yeah,
car
we have a
stations.
couple, but we don't really, you know. Anyway, I think if we were known to be a good stop, we could at least have lunch. And Rodinas would be happy, so.
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to think of some of these ideas that aren't quite the usual duo, you know.
We are always trying to think outside the box.
I know.
I mean,
I-
we're always open to input from any planner that wants to come to town. I know Commissioner Mata, I've tried to convince him to hold a pickleball tournament, because we always need people that know what they're doing to put on that tournament,
Yeah,
right?
well, I didn't know he was an ace, okay.
So, but,
Yeah, the other
yeah.
thing is, I had a reception at Union Hall last week, and that's beautiful.
It is a
absolutely.
wonderful space.
And most of the people had not even known it was there. So
Right.
How long has it been?
They opened, boy, we got a tour a while ago. I'm trying to think when they started renting out to groups. But yeah, it is a beautiful space right
It
there
really
in
is
downtown.
perfect, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. No questions? Is there any public comment on the report?
Marcia, you won't answer me, but still. How is it that you believe that instead of exhibiting the fiscal responsibility of sticking to a reasonable budget with inflation-based increases, that you should always get 60% of our transient guest tax funds? Even when it represents a 16% increase from last year, even while the rest of the city departments are facing staffing cuts and no capital improvements. Will you still only ask for 60% when those funds decrease as the recession worsens? And why shouldn't we use that money to instead replenish our savings account and fix the infrastructure these tourists damage every year? It's time to switch from growth mode into maintaining and sustaining our town, into taking care of what and who we already have. Most organic life does stop growing once we reach adulthood. The only cells that don't stop growing are cancer. There's a hard maximum of predatory real estate developers and short-term rentals our housing market and neighbors can endure. There's a hard maximum of tourists our infrastructure can withstand and our citizens can service. And there's a hard limit on how much of our town we can bulldoze and rebuild while still being Manhattan. Or did you consider that? How many more historic buildings are you going to demolish? How many parking garages are you going to install in their place? How many Aggieville bars are going to close forever because they can't financially compete against national chains with deep pockets in a bulldozed, high-concept new lifestyle district? You displace longtime locally owned businesses in favor of Back 9 Development, a 2012 startup who has since very publicly and embarrassingly proven that they can't deliver. The Dusty Bookshelf already almost lost their building to soaring rents in the name of gentrification. That won't be the last time the store will face closing down over rent, but there will be a last time. And you're the ones signing the execution order. You're the ones paving over our character, our culture, our history, and our future. What more are we willing to lose? What are we not willing to lose? Have any of you ever asked yourselves that? Say yes, and I won't believe you. You're pimping out our city to whoever has a credit card and wants a good time for a night or two. To any Airbnb investor looking to make a quick buck off of us while gobbling up our starter home inventory, making no improvements, letting the guests destroy them, and leaving our own citizens in a housing crisis. To any crappy hotel owner who doesn't even live here or spend his profits here and still expects free taxes. What about us? What about the people who live here, pay taxes, have kids enrolled in our schools, eat at local restaurants year-round, and not just during football season? Who do you actually swear to protect and serve? I'll give you the answer. It's townies. Most of you are elected officials who have been granted immense power and authority by that government for the sole purpose of advocating for two things, our town herself and townies. How can townies compete for a home against tourists who can pay $160 a night? We can't. This is what regulations are for. Instead, you're sending Manhattan out in a dime store dress and saying, here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down. And never looking at the consequences this industry wreaks on our citizens and our home. I get so sick of hearing you say that the hotels provide great jobs. Have you ever even spoken to a Hilton employee about their experience there? Did you ever look at their reviews on Glassdoor? With 4,000 reviews, Hilton hotels only have 3.5 stars. I wouldn't even try a recipe with that rating. I did talk to their employees, and this is what they had to say. The Hilton expects us to have full-time availability for a part-time job, making a second job almost impossible. Full-timers are often salaried, but that's to avoid paying us overtime for the 60 to 80-hour weeks that we're forced to work. They schedule us for shifts that we already told them we weren't available for, and they expect us to beg our coworkers to cover the shift, like scheduling isn't management's job. They overstaff events to make sure they have enough people, only to send half the workers home at the beginning of the shift without pay on a day we were expecting to work. They pay $11 an hour. That's less than a pack of diapers. They don't contribute to the job market. Hilton contributes to our poverty rate. Did you honestly think that your friends could have luxury rooms for a mere $100 a night with no consequences? I told you last time I spoke, if you don't see your wake, it's because you're not looking. Our working class is bearing those consequences for you. You are racing blindly into our town, becoming a soulless urban sprawl, being bulldozed into a faceless, generic, wannabe Kansas City husk of herself, and crumbling under the weight of how disrespectfully tourists abuse our low-bidder, unmaintained infrastructure. If you keep investing all our tax dollars into your wants, we won't have anything left for our needs. Tourism is a bubble. We're in a recession. This won't last forever.
There's no action required on this, so we'll move on to C, mixed-use redevelopment project at, oh, I'm sorry, please come up.
Yeah.
I apologize, I didn't see you.
That's okay.
Can you sign in, please?
I will, yeah. Do you mind if I speak first, or do you?
I don't think that's any problem. What? Oh, you know, you need to sign in first, please.
Well, wait for me to write my name. State your name and address. I'm sorry, I thought you were in a rush.
Yeah, and make sure you state your name and address.
Right.
Thank you. I'll get it right sooner or later.
Hi, friends. My name is Darian Smith, and I still think it's garbage that I have to give you my address, which is 2132 Prairie Lee Place. What are your addresses? Also, I don't have fancy prepared comments today because, unlike some of you, I have another job that requires a lot of my time, but I do think it's absolutely ridiculous that I had to rush around, run my errands, come back here to then tell you that you should give a crap about us as citizens rather than our failing Airbnb industry. It's absolutely asinine to me that I have to stand up here in my pajamas at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night to explain to you the interests of the people that you serve. I can tell you with my experience and my master's degree, what happens to towns that sink all of their money into tourism as an industry and fail to take care of the people that live there. If you'd like a real world example, look at the Bahamas. Look at the Bahamas. I was there a couple of weeks ago. Their infrastructure absolutely destroyed by placing all of their eggs in the tourism basket. What are you doing for the people that live here? You're so busy trying to benefit from Airbnbs that you don't recognize the housing crisis. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. You guys talked about the housing crisis 2 weeks ago. Karen, I understand that you work with ADA, you do some work over there, and they actually just shut down their Candlewood stops. How is that gonna affect our infrastructure? How are those people, where the low income housing is, how are those people gonna get to work? but we're so worried about tourism. What are we doing for the people in our own community? It breaks my heart to sit here and have to tell you repeatedly, and I will be here every 2 weeks to tell you that you are not serving the people of this community by investing all of your time and money into failing. Look at the numbers. The Airbnbs are making, there is not nearly enough growth in 5 years. It's astonishing. And you're worried about pickleball. And you're worried about disc golf. When you should be worried about the people starving in our city, the people that are dependent upon volunteers and food banks. You don't care about them. I like that we padded the CVB numbers with K-State. That's cute. That is a very clever strategy, and I love that. I wish it worked like that in the real world. I kind of want to pad my accounting numbers too. I'm really disappointed, and I'm sorry, where is Susan? Oh, so I can make time to be here, but she can't. Twice now. You're right, I don't know anything. I'm just one of the people. Last time I spoke, you got the nice version. This time you're getting the I'm exhausted. I have been at work since 8 o'clock this morning, and I still make time to come here because you guys are ruining the city that I love. I am a transplant. I came here because my ex-husband was military. I followed him out here. We split up, and I was like, you know what? I like it here. I worked at the Discovery Center, and the people there were so kind to me. They pulled me out of the deepest, darkest depths I've ever been in. They saved my life. It is the people of Manhattan that keep this place going. And we're so worried about turning it into a tourist trap when tourism isn't even a profitable industry in the long run. It's crazy. But I'm not actually talking to you. You guys are not going to listen to anything that I say, and I know that. It's okay. I'm just gonna keep saying it. I'm saying it for all of the other people that can't make time to be here tonight. This is not something that I made up. These are conversations that I have every single day with my neighbors, with my friends, my coworkers, the girls at the Pilates studio, the kids, like the parents at Boys and Girls Club. These are all, these are sentiments that I didn't make these up. These are sentiments shared by the other homeowners in my neighborhood, and we're all struggling to pay bills. And Manhattan city commissioners are so concerned about bringing tourists here that you can't be bothered to take care of your own people. At least you guys are paying attention to me now. That's nice, because the number of times I've seen you not paying attention during presentations, the number of you that are on video not paying attention to me the last time that I spoke, it's very disrespectful. You have one job, and it is to take care of us, the people. It's to take care of this city, and you are running it into the ground. So we can continue to do this, or you can get it together. Some of you, again, are elected officials. Some of you are up for re-election very, very soon. The poor people have spoken. The working class is angry. And you guys are worried about tourism. Those tourists spend money one time. Citizens spend money every single day. And all you're worried about is bringing in rich tourists. That is a choice. It's a choice you're allowed to make. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. We'll move on to anybody else. Gary, go ahead.
Do I need to sign in again?
No, you've signed in. You're fine. You just have to say your name and address, please.
Gary Olds, 3308 Frontier Circle, Manhattan. I think it is important that everybody understand, particularly the woman who just spoke, and I think Jason talked about this maybe 2 months ago, I can't remember. What's the revenue source for Manhattan? It's sales tax dollars, okay? Public, it's sales tax dollars. You don't go after people from out of town to bring their money here, and it ain't gonna be $38 million in ad valorem budget. It's gonna be 68,000 or 100,000. And for the folks who don't pay property taxes in Prairie Glen, I guess that won't hurt them. As far as the working class being angry, I'm working, I'm not angry. Now, there's probably been times, and Karen would probably agree with this, I've not been very respectful to you. And I want to apologize for that, because it was never my intent to be disrespectful to you. You're in a place of honor that the people put you there, and we thank you for that. You've got a tough job. You've got a nearly impossible job, because I think somebody said you can't make everybody happy. You just want to try to make as many people as you can happy. So you have to balance for those of us who are old enough, I keep referring to our age, don't I, Karen? You're not. If you remember the Ed Sullivan Show and the spinning of the plates and trying to keep the plates go, for those of you who are old enough, that's what running a city is like. You're trying to keep the city going. You're trying to create new revenue sources. Yeah, Airbnb is a tough thing. Okay, maybe it cuts in, I don't know. I wouldn't have any objection if the state gave the Airbnbs a different classification so they get to pay more than 11.5% of the value of their home, okay? But don't be discouraged. And I know you guys have been through the fire, and you have people who come up and just lambaste you. And we've got to be civil. We may not agree. In fact, Karen, you and I probably wouldn't agree on a lot of things. But do you remember the time, well, that was at a school board meeting, where Jamie said, we agree on something. And I'm like, that is rare that Jamie and I would agree on something, but we've at least got to be civil. And if I'm ever disrespectful to you, you tell me. Please tell me. I think that you're doing the best job you can. And yeah, you're not going to make perfect decisions for everybody. But I think the TGT and the CBV and the chamber and all the things that are underneath it and whatever's above it and whatever's beside it, they're important elements. They're important elements to the community, to be a vibrant community. I spend all my workday in Junction City. I'm a native of Junction City, the other side of the river. I live in Manhattan because it's a wonderful place to live and a wonderful place to raise a family. Junction City's a wonderful place to raise a family. It's a wonderful place to live. And people have the choice of any community. But don't be discouraged, because what you're doing may not be perfect, but at least you're willing to step up and lead. And when you're up for re-election, the people will decide if you're doing a good job or not. They'll either send you home or they'll send you back to the seat until you get tired of it and you're not going to do that anymore. So don't be discouraged. In fact, be encouraged. Because even though it's expensive to live in Manhattan, and we do struggle with retirees on one end and people who don't have enough income on the other end, I think that the city is progressing. The city is getting better. It's slow. And remember, taxes will always increase. They'll always increase. Property taxes, sales tax, whatever the case may be. The question is, how much will they increase? Not that they won't, because they will, because inflation eats into it. But don't be discouraged. I appreciate your service very much.
Anybody? Oh, not done yet.
Jessica Winters, 408 Houston Street. I've actually been coming here for a while telling you guys that you are not representing people and that you are doing a poor job of leadership. The truth is that we all get a vote every couple of years, and we all get to determine the people that get to sit up there. Once again, most of us. Some of us are appointed unanimously by a, I will keep that comment to myself, but the truth is that, like, we are here telling you tonight that you are not serving the people. And if you continue to ignore people and you continue to brush everyone aside and just go, oh, well, we should be encouraged because we're getting slightly better than we used to be, like, that's not leadership. That's barely scraping by. Most of you have barely scraped by. I think it will be very interesting to see who scrapes by during the election season.
Anybody else? Okay. We will move on to C, to discuss mixed-use redevelopment project at 8th Street and Poyntz Avenue, the Commerce Building site. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We have a presentation this evening from members of the LLC who have proposed a development. Let me get that. They have a presentation. We have a short presentation once they are complete. We'll go through some of the details surrounding what they've proposed and how it impacts the property itself. And I probably shouldn't have started that thing. Come on. There we go. So I'll introduce Kyle. Kyle will run through some slides and we will go from there.
I'm going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Mike Brand. I'm the managing partner of our development group. Kyle Blaisdell. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm with Hutton, and Hutton will be part of the development group, and then also the design and construction aspect of the development.
I'm sorry, didn't get your name?
Kyle Blaisdell.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good evening.
Thanks for having us. We want to make it brief on our part of the deal. We want to be very open, ask any questions you like, and we want to propose. Kyle's going to explain to you what we're proposing to do there at the corner of Poyntz and 8th Street.
Yeah.
In the old Commerce Bank building.
Yeah, so our story starts about a year ago. Commerce Bank came to us as partners and said, we have this building in Manhattan, and their longtime tenant in the tower was moving out, and so came and said, we would love to figure out a way to redevelop this building. And so they came and asked us from a design and construction aspect of what can we do and how can we reuse this building to prepare it for another 20, 30, 50 years of occupancy. And so our team, in conjunction with Commerce Bank, spent over 4 months trying to figure out a solution to how to reuse the existing building as it sits today. And iteration after iteration, and digging through in the tunnel of the old building and everywhere else, what we found is that there was no way we could come back in and redevelop the building as it sits today because of the cost to renovate the building. Some of the things that you may not look or know just when you look at the building, the overall floor plate of the tower is incredibly small. It's only a few thousand square feet. It doesn't feel like it when you drive by the building, but when you get up and in the building, the tower itself is not a very large structure. Although it's tall, from a floor plate, there's just not enough area there to redevelop it into, we looked at it both apartments and future offices. Additionally, all the glass on the outside of the building, the entire north face of the building is glass. All the glass needs replaced. It's original to the building. And then also the heating and air conditioning system for the entire building needs to be updated and replaced. All those factors, in addition to just the general renovations cost to do an adaptive reuse, made the building not feasible. And so we went back, had great conversations with Commerce Bank and said, we appreciate you guys letting us take a look at this. We don't think that there's an option there for redevelopment. And we kind of thought that the project was going to end there. And then Commerce Bank came back a month or two later and said, okay, dream big with us. What could we figure out to do in this place on Poyntz Avenue? I'm a K-State grad. Most of our design and construction departments are K-State grads as well. So when the opportunity came to dream big and say, what could we do in place of this to honor the building that was there, but then also prepare this corner at 8th and Poyntz for the next 50 years? Well, we had our team put their heads together, and that's when we brought Mike in and said, we think a mixed-use development right down on Poyntz that blends both commercial space, retail space, and housing is a great opportunity or a great future for this corner. And so Mike, having done a project very similar to this one, an incredibly similar floor plate and site plan, so we brought Mike in and we all put our heads together and came up with the building that you saw at the start. So what we're proposing to build is this structure in place of the existing Commerce Bank building. What it has is first floor, all commercial space and retail space. It'll be a mixture. Great partner, Commerce Bank, will be in on the first floor if we're able to go build it. But then we have great space there for other restaurants or retail shops, any and everything you could think of on the first floor. And then on the floors above, the second, third, and fourth floor, there's a mixture of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments with 54 units in the entire building. And then on the fifth floor, as you see, we'd have what we're calling a rooftop patio. It'll be a rooftop amenity space. Because of the condensed nature of the site and urban redevelopment, oftentimes you don't have the sprawling amenities of clubhouses and pools and everything else because you're more condensed in your downtown. And so that'll be a great amenity space for us up on the fifth floor. From a site plan perspective, as you'll see, the existing Commerce Bank building is where we would have the new building with parking and then parking back behind. And then also we've proposed an ask of similar to Poyntz Avenue further east, having on-street parking both on Poyntz and on 8th Street. And if you're curious, you can see our unit count ratios there. Floor plate is roughly 21,000 square feet. And so we're trying to utilize the entire site. We recognize the importance of any type of project that happens on Poyntz and in downtown Manhattan. We've done projects like this, and being able to have an entire frontage of the property with construction and built out to the edge, we're utilizing every space available to add life and walkability to what exists as a phenomenal downtown already. But we really believe this project adds to that vibrancy of bringing more spaces and more people to enjoy what is already a very great thing. So still working through concept designs. You can kind of see how we're planning to break up the first floor of the building with planned Commerce Bank on the far east end. And then again, the renderings of the buildings. From a schedule perspective, our goal would be to break ground to start demolition of the building in February with a goal to be open in May of 2026. I know that sounds like a long way away, but in our world, that's a very short window. What we have is a prepared and ready, what we think a sized appropriate project ready to go. And so for us to be able to break ground in February, we're ready to get rolling. We've got all of our ducks in a row to make that happen. But yeah, so we'd break ground or start demolition in February, be ready for May of 2026. It's roughly a 12 to 14 month project when you add in the demolition of the existing building. And just kind of as an ode to the existing building, when you look at the vertical space that's going to have our elevators, it's kind of a nod to the past of the Commerce Bank building that's there. So very similar look and feel. Our design team felt that was important, and I fully agree with them to kind of just have a nod to the past. So it looks very similar. And then there's the picture looking to the west as you're coming down Poyntz. Obviously, the first picture is as you're looking to the east. And so with that, that's pretty much our short and sweet presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, can we get a prospectus for the building?
Prospectus.
I think that if we are being asked to invest in this, we really need to be able to have all of the financial information available to us and to the public, since it would be public dollars. I know you guys have talked about some proprietary things. My concern with that is I don't think that a bank if you would go to ask a bank for $2 million and you told them you couldn't give them information because it was proprietary, I don't think that would be acceptable.
Okay.
So I'm considering us to be an investor in this, and the financial return would be, hopefully the additional property tax revenue in 10 years if we were to do this full abatement. So I'm considering us to be an investor, so I think that we as a commission and the public should be able to have as much financial information as possible.
So it's a great question, Peter. Currently, the tax base is about $2 million. We are not asking to change the tax base on the deal. We will continue paying that for the next 10 years. We're just asking everything above that $2 million to what we are going to spend on the project. And we're going to spend $15.5 million on the project. So
Right.
that's what they're asking for. So it's not going to change the base if the building sits vacant for 10 years. That's still going to be the same money.
I understand that.
Okay.
It's still a property tax abatement. We're still foregoing revenue, and that is.
Well, you're foregoing revenue that doesn't exist today, right?
Right.
So we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I understand that.
As it exists today, there is no additional revenue. I'm just making sure we're all on the same page. That as it exists today, there wouldn't be additional revenue.
I don't know that we've had all of that discussion come out, though, on the request publicly, so I think
Yeah, we're
maybe,
gonna see that. so
I think
everyone
that's
knows.
Jason's presentation, the
Yeah.
actual ask
Sure.
of what it is, so I
that
don't
would-
know that we've,
That would be my question.
Peter just got
to-
really
to
excited.
the two of you is for more financial information and things related to costs and rents and things like that.
Yeah, so we have some of the rents, where we share that, you let us know, and then the cost, we've shared that with Jason and his team as far as what the building costs are that we're expecting, and then total investment as well.
I'm sure you've done your research, but we do have quite a bit of empty retail in Manhattan.
Yep.
This would be more retail in
Yes, ma'am.
Manhattan. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So basically, we have Commerce Bank coming back to the property, and they're going to take, and we don't want to make it public knowledge because they asked us not to, but we do have our anchor for the corner part for a new restaurant, and so.
Which are all contingent on us
Yes.
being able to build it.
Yeah, if we build a building, obviously they're going to come to the table.
Yeah.
So we have two really super good anchors at the moment, tenants.
So,
of course,
so
I'm-
we hear you, and oftentimes retail is one of the toughest things. I'll tell you, if part of our due diligence is going and already trying to find people who would be potential tenants. And so recognizing that question and that concern, we're doing whatever we can as early as we can to fill it up.
Yeah, I'm a little sad we can't preserve it because it is a very good example of mid-century American architecture.
Yeah.
It's been sort of a positive thing for, people think things have to be 100 years old to be really good, but
Sure.
this is. But it does fall within the plans for the downtown extensions and that
Yes,
kind
ma'am.
of thing. So I'm supportive, but I have many questions about the finances, and Jason's going to lead us through that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it.
Okay, I didn't want to walk off and
No.
not be any other questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've been working with Kyle and his team on this development for several months. They have requested the use of industrial revenue bonds, both from a sales tax exemption perspective, which we've estimated just shy of $550,000 in benefit. If you recall, the majority of that benefit is the state sales tax rate at which they'll buy their materials. There is a local associated with that if they buy those here in Manhattan. If they do buy their goods and services here in Manhattan, obviously our local businesses benefit from that too. The 10-year abatement has been discussed here a little bit, but they would propose to continue to pay the base amount. It's roughly 17% of that future value. So the request to abate is really the increase or the increment on the building itself. It exists today at about $2 million, and in the future estimated to be $11 million. I will point out that $2 million has been the same value since 2014. We have a property that has not increased, hasn't moved a whole lot. As the vacancies start to occur, which we're all aware of, people who have moved out, companies that have moved out, the county will reappraise, every January, looking at that occupancy. So the $2 million that exists today, you can speculate both ways. You can speculate with a decline in value, or you can speculate with an increase in value. But the last 10 years, it has been flat. There are $325,000 worth of public improvements. If you look back at your concepts, I'll pull them up to show you. When they gave us a top-down view of this thing, these angled stalls along Poyntz Avenue do not exist today. They are a lane of traffic today. The lane of traffic at 8th Street ends at Juliet. There is a dedicated right-hand turn lane there. They're proposing to make that dedicated right-hand turn basically go into 8th and turn this lane into angled parking. There would be a drive-through for Landmark would remain, obviously Commerce Bank back into the building as they suggested, but they do desire these angled stalls. They would have a bulb out here at the corner, and then they would turn the corner and obviously have a newer sidewalk that more than likely will be in need of repair after construction. They've also proposed some parking stalls here along 8th Street. Again, $325,000 is the estimate. It's factored into your consideration for that ultimate development agreement. They're requesting to split those costs 50-50. Hutton plans to manage the construction and could complete that public infrastructure. We have entered into development agreements in the past with developers when they're interacting and adjacent to some of our public infrastructure that either is in need of repair or in need of modification. This would also, go ahead.
Jason, can you go back to the picture again?
Yep.
If it's going to be a bank, where's the drive up?
I think there's a proposed drive-through right here. So it's pretty close to where the drive-through exists today for the banks themselves. There's a lane that goes between Landmark and Commerce. And I don't think it's off all that much. Or Kyle can explain a little bit more.
Sure.
You bet.
Sure, we want all the information we can get.
Sure. I didn't want to step out of turn or be out of turn. So right here at the corner, do you see where the drive-through is actually tucked under the building? So we would extend the apartments above the drive-through. Again, keeping that street face on. When you're in, I'm gonna call them historic type downtowns, you want as much up against the street as possible. So we went ahead and carried the building all the way across and then have a drive-through below.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You all, if you have questions.
As I mentioned, Kyle's provided the estimate of about $325,000. We're looking at a way to split that cost. We could look at two options to finance. We can factor that roughly $30,000. I'm sorry, $165,000 each on the split from a 50-50. We could factor that into the abatement. In that scenario, there's really no out-of-pocket for the city. It's just less revenue coming into the city, county, and school district on the taxes paid. On the benefit district scenario, we would basically have the higher percent, the 29% paid in that scenario, and they would petition the city for the public improvements, at which they would more than likely, if agreed upon, look for 50% participation from the public. We wouldn't necessarily have to issue that debt. We could issue, the petitions could be received. We could go out and establish the benefit district. We could assess that property over the next 20 years for their half. They would pay it as part of their property taxes. We would pay our half, more than likely before it would go to bond. They could also pay off their specials early too if they decided to do that. It's really at their discretion. Those are really our two options. We wanted to give you the base year and the taxes being generated today, so it's just over 2.2 million. $79,000 in taxes are generated. The improvement itself will require about a $276,000 payment. That's a net gain of $197,000 annually. And we wanted to show you that comparison and look at it from a 10-year perspective. The difference of $197,000 a year turns into $1.9 million in increment. They're looking again for that piece of the puzzle to be abated, and that's really on a 71-29% split. With the street improvements down below, if you wanted to roll to a 2377, that $79,000 would drop to about $63,000 annually in a property tax payment. So wanted to make sure you had access to those numbers and could see it not only on an annual basis but a 10-year and for comparison purposes. This evening is really about, are you comfortable moving forward? If you are, we'll start drafting the IRB actions. We will also look at the development agreements. If there's additional information that you would like to see, we can obviously incorporate that in the next presentation and the next packet of information. So really tonight, it's about learning a little bit more about what their proposal is, your comfort level with these tools, and the direction you'd like us to go. As a side note, and it's really not a topic we like to belabor, but this is going to require a rezoning. And you all have a different role in rezonings, so we really don't want to talk about why or how it's impacted by that zoning this evening. But just so you know, in the event this thing starts to gain momentum, the planning board will be approached first, and then ultimately back to you all for rezoning. And more than likely, it'll be an extension of what we have downtown.
I've got a couple of questions that people asked me, so I'm going to ask you.
Sure.
One was, I know that they plan to rent these units that they have, but if they were to change their mind and sell them, what would happen, or sell some of them, what would happen as far as the abatement goes?
The IRB abatement typically comes with an agreement. If the commission desires to have something maintain itself through 10 years, we certify that value every year under abatement scenarios. And we go back to those agreements and we make sure they're in compliance when we go to certify those values to the county. We've done that with Civics Plus. We've done that with multiple recipients of economic development packages that include abatements. So if there's something specific the commission would like to see and make sure it maintains itself for the 10-year period, we can work that into the agreement itself.
So you're just saying if we had to worry about that, we could say that they would have to maintain bean rentals or have some language of here's what's going to happen if you sell?
If that's something the commission desires, we can absolutely work that into the agreement.
Okay. And then the other question, kind of interesting, is there's obviously some commercial and there's some residential. Is it possible to do abatement on one type of the, like for the commercial versus the residential?
There is some flexibility on how you address abatements. We have found over the years the percentage to be the easiest to administer.
Yeah.
But there are other ways you can structure these things. You can look at floors, you can look at use, you can get somewhat creative. But again, the city, at the end of every year, is going to the county to certify the value at which is taxable. And it's based on the agreement.
Yeah.
That
was part of my answer. I said, we can always set percentages. I
Yes.
didn't know about this, doing it by
Yeah.
classification.
Yeah, the percentage it's just been an easier way for us to track and be simplest when it goes to certify that value with the county.
So, okay, thanks.
We'll entertain public comment on this issue, and then we'll have more discussion, I'm sure. Go ahead, please.
Sign my name. My name is Michael Grogan. I live at 202 South MLK Jr. Drive. And good evening, City Commissioners and City Manager. I'm here mainly to speak about the Commerce Building in architectural terms. I'm not familiar with the studies and things that have taken place in the sense of trying to adapt it. And I'm an architecture professor at Kansas State, an architect, and my research focus and kind of advocacy efforts have revolved around the post-war period of modern architecture in the United States. And recently, I completed a survey with a colleague that was a National Park funded survey of over 140 buildings in Manhattan of the modernist movement. And I want to say generally we have a robust yet rapidly diminishing collection of buildings from the kind of modernist heritage in town. And so increasingly, I'm more protective of anything. And specifically with the Commerce Bank building, which was built in 1970 as the Union National Bank and Trust Tower, I would argue is one of the most sophisticated and unique examples of modern architecture in Manhattan and perhaps Kansas from this era of architectural heritage, which dates from about the 40s to the 70s in the United States. I should also disclose that personally, this is my favorite building. So when we have visiting architecture lecturers, scholars come into town from all over the world, I always make sure to drive them by at least or walk by with them. And they all express how interesting and innovative the building seems to be, at least from the outside, right? But also as a key component of kind of the urban fabric and how it works with its site, which is sort of isolated as kind of that eastern or western extension of downtown that started taking place after World War II. So with that kind of notion, both its architectural merits and its urban merits, I would say, it looms as the most impressive building on the west end of downtown along Poyntz, a zone that also has many other signature works, such as the Lutheran Church, designed by the Edsons, obviously the Manhattan Library, and then the collection of little banks designed by Wolfenbarger that reside around the Commerce Building. So it's kind of this collection that I feel could be an expanded part of the downtown historic district. With this collection, assuming it remains intact. And as you probably know, it was designed by a Denver firm of Martin Nedler, who also designed the West Loop KSU Bank, which has been modified over the years, but he was designing that around the same time. And it was completed as an ambitious architectural expression of optimism and growth as the 1960s came to a close. As stated by the chairman of the board of the Union National Bank, J.T. Griffith, at the time, the building's completion would stand as, quote, a declaration of faith and confidence in the future of Manhattan. As one of the newer modernist buildings that we've surveyed here in town, I view the Commerce as both the pinnacle of this type of architecture in Manhattan and as a representative bookend opposite of the lovely 1940 AG Press, or The Press as it's called now, building on South MLK and Yuma. So I know there's been discussions, I've had discussions with the bank manager last year that obviously the building has leaky windows and there's things like that. I know the footprint architecturally speaking, is probably hard to use. So I trust that the proposal here, that they've looked into adaptive strategy seriously. I suspect, but I'll just kind of leave it with where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm not going to talk about the relative merits, from my opinion, of the proposed replacement. I would ask maybe if they've looked at whether this could be on the National Register of Historic Places, which I certainly believe it could be, and the state register as well, and that could provide incentives like a 20% rehabilitation tax credit, maybe some other kind of grant funding. And since the current tenant on the upper floors has moved out, which I want to also identify as that's been a single tenant since the building was built, and in fact they were with the original Union National building within downtown. So it seems like there's some type of office use that could probably happen, but there's financials and logistics, obviously, that I'm not knowledgeable about. But, so I just want to conclude sort of, at least in my professional sphere, the Commerce Bank is considered a significant work of architecture in our city, and demolition would be a major loss for the city's built heritage. And I strongly believe that it's fair to say that demolishing a 6-story architectural gem for a 4 or 5-story new building doesn't convey the kind of notion of fostering growth as the strategic plan states in the agenda. So as a taxpayer, I'd rather see tax exemptions and other incentives directed towards filling the many empty lots around the Commerce Building in the stretch of points. And that would be more in the spirit of fostering growth and a sense of place. So I thank you for your time and consideration.
Hi, Joe.
I'm Joe Knopp, and I work at 620 Humboldt. I'm not here tonight to discuss zoning and planning and architectural control. Manager, good to have you here, and city commissioners. I'm here to talk about industrial revenue bonds and their philosophy. Industrial revenue bonds. 20 years ago, I was chamber president, and we used industrial revenue bonds as an incentive to attract industry to come here over Salina, Lincoln, Omaha, wherever else. They were looking for a tweet to make this an attractive place to come. The rule was but for this incentive would they put us on their list. And our comments made is correct. But for this incentive, would this property stay at 2 million versus go to 17 or 20 million? That is true for industry, and we're willing to give that to industries because they bring jobs. And those jobs then buy houses, this is a residential commercial that is competing in the local market. It is not bringing in any new industry to our community. I don't know what our philosophy is. I couldn't find it in the proposal tonight as to what criteria must be met before we grant these kind of breaks to people. And maybe the ship has sailed. Maybe we're giving it to everybody. I don't know if Michael Chin got it to build his apartment or his building in Aggieville across from the old Burger King. I don't know if Varney's got it to build their building down here. I don't know. I know I didn't get it to put $50,000 of improvements into my house or into my business. I know that Aggieville owners didn't get a $100,000 abatement for putting a new roof on. I mean, are we giving it to everybody or just those who are big enough to ask for it? You routinely complain when we talk about property taxes. And you say, well, but the university takes so much it's off the tax rolls. The fort takes so much it's off the tax rolls. Churches take so much they're off the tax rolls. Our museums take so much they're off the tax rolls. But you're giving $2 million of a break and taking it off the tax roll that would otherwise, over the next 10 years, help lower all of our taxes. But for this tax incentive, this break, would this development happen? That's the question to ask. And I think the market will tell you that it does or it doesn't. And let the market decide. When we start picking winners and losers based on tax breaks, we run into real problems, as we did in Aggieville, as we do at other places. Tax breaks alone shouldn't go. They're a small fraction of the total package. If Scorpion can't go because they've got that small fraction, they can't go. So don't allow this little tail to wag the big dog. The dog is the market and the local market. And there have been a lot of residential development north of Bluemont. And I don't mean to pick on the Elsie brothers or anybody else, but they've done it without industrial revenue bonds, I believe. Now, maybe they've been getting it and I didn't know it. But a lot of people are putting up residential development all over town and not asking for a break. And if it takes this kind of break to convince a Missouri bank and a Wichita construction company to do this, and but for this, nobody else in the world will do it, I can understand it. But I don't think that's the case. And I think that's the kind of test you ought to ask of them, and you ought to be prepared to explain it to us as you give a $2 million break. We were willing to give that break to Forest City when they came here because we didn't think anybody else would build a mall without those kind of breaks. So we gave them a 10-year tax abatement on the entire mall, which was retail development. But we've paid the price. We've given that break to make downtown viable. Now's the time to reap the dividend of that investment. And that dividend is having people like this come in and say, this is a great place to build, this is a great market to build in, and we're going to come here and do it. Not because of a little bit of a break, but because it's a great market.
Joe, could you give us your residential address?
104 Oakwood Circle.
Thank you. Other comments? Yeah, please. Oh.
Good evening. My name is Sean Drew, 1713 Hudson Avenue. Mayor Pro Tem McCullough, commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to visit with you guys today. I live here in Manhattan and I work for Commerce Bank as the market president. Commerce Bank has been in this community serving clients for over 30 years, and we regularly evaluate our branch network to better understand how we're going to connect our solutions and meet the client needs. This evaluation of structure, building, location has led us to do a couple of things, one of which is we're currently in the middle of a remodel of our Kansas State location on campus, and then has obviously led us to discussions about the building on Poyntz. Over several years, we have considered multiple options for what that reinvestment in Manhattan looks like and what the reinvestment for that particular space could look like. And at this time, we do believe that Hutton's proposal presented here today does meet the best opportunity for our clients and the community moving forward. Hutton, Kyle mentioned it earlier, Hutton has spent nearly a year working with us, iterating on, can we do this? If not, can we do this? If not, can we do this? And what they've presented today and come back with is a creative mixed-use development that blends home, work, and play, and to the comments earlier, to an area that's kind of felt like it's the far west edge of downtown. We feel like that this development and us being a part of this development with them as a tenant will continue to support that thriving and prosperous downtown that everyone is looking for. I look forward to the good things that I think this development can bring. We're excited about locating back in this location. Many of the conversations that we had over the last several years talked about the importance of that location to who we are. And Poyntz Avenue has been our home, and we want it to continue to be our home, which is why we want to locate our location right back there. We feel like that the commitment that we're making as a part of the project too is a strong indication of reinvestment back into the community. When I moved here 8 years ago, that was the thing that drew me here, as I knew Commerce was going to continue to evaluate and do the right things to be a strong partner for the community going forward. We think this, in addition to our remodel that we're doing at K-State, does exactly that. We're really excited for what's to come. Thank you very much for the time and the consideration for the proposal that you guys are giving.
Thank you. Is there any? Oh, Josh.
Good evening, Josh Brewer, Habitat for Humanity of the Northern Flint Hills. Full disclosure, we
Address?
bank with,
Address?
410 Fremont Street, residential address. We bank with Commerce, and Commerce has donated and supported our organization in the past. And I have to say, it is really a pleasure, if you haven't, to go in their lobby. It's one of the most beautiful lobbies, bank lobbies in Manhattan. I want to speak specifically to the terms of the agreement that you're looking at tonight in exchange for $2 million. I think what I would ask that you consider is, what are the residents of this community getting in exchange? Our homeowners pay taxes, I pay taxes, and just remodel my kitchen, I'm not getting a property tax abatement. You know, any speculative opportunity in our community, you know, there's a profit motivation there. I think there's a significant profit motivation here. The rents of this building will exceed fair market value. The amenities on the rooftop, this is going to be a luxury development. Generally, Habitat for Humanity is supportive of housing in this community. We are supportive of housing even if it is outside of the traditional affordability realm. However, I think we have to recognize that property tax deferment is going to come at a fiscal cost to the rest of the property taxpayers. So what are we getting in exchange for this deferred property tax revenue? A few things that I would consider. First is affordability. During the 10-year period of property tax deferment, is it possible for these rents to be tagged to fair market value? I think based on some preliminary numbers and some indications from a similar development in Wichita, the deviation is not very significant. On average, you're probably looking at about $150 to $160 a month per bedroom in this development. Is it possible in the pro forma for that to be, for that to be workable for the developer? I suspect it is. We know we also have incentives. We have workforce housing sales tax dollars, $250,000, that this development could tie in affordable rental development. That might make this pro forma work. Not sure if that's been considered or not. The second piece is quality of this development. Obviously, if the building that is currently here is torn down, we will have lost something significant. It's a beautiful building. I've been to the upstairs. Habitat used to be in the basement of the building. I enjoy the lobby. If that building is gone, what is going back in its place? Is it going to be the big boxy style of architecture that we see here, and which is contemporary? Or is it going to be something that will, in 50, 60 years, we'll look at and call a treasure? Will it be tied to 2021 energy code? Or will it continue to have to perform at a substandard energy code, which is the code in Manhattan? Will the design be pedestrian-oriented, or will it be automobile-centric with a drive-through under your bedroom? The final piece is subsidy stewardship. In exchange for a subsidy, how are we going to protect that amount? I appreciate Mr. Knopp bringing up the mall. In exchange for the subsidized development at the mall, the city retains ownership of the land. The city controls the usage of the site through a ground lease agreement. That's possible here. It is also possible that the city simply retain the stewardship of this period through the deferred property tax period. And ultimately, I think what the citizens deserve in exchange for this value is transparency. How can we know what the base development costs are if we don't see a disclosed pro forma? I appreciate Commissioner Alpelt's asking for transparency and financials. How do we know what the developer markup is? How do we know what the contractor markups are? How do we know that there are fair bidding practices in the market? In exchange for a $2 million investment, the taxpayers deserve to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jason Smith, President CEO, Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome home, Danielle. Glad to see you here. Mayor Pro Tem McCullough and Manhattan City Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you today to provide input on the proposal from Hutton Development for the redevelopment of the Commerce Bank building site. On behalf of our members, I'm asking you to encourage the staff and developers to continue to move this project forward. We believe this proposal provides unique advantages for our community that must be considered. First, it brings significant investment to a site where the valuation of the existing facility continues to be threatened by age and lack of flexibility to be adapted to current market conditions. As valuation falls, so would the taxes collected on the facility. This investment would guarantee the current valuation for 10 years with significant additional value being added to the tax rolls at the end of those 10 years. Second, it provides a much-needed and unique housing solution to the community. The city's housing study indicated a need for housing of all types in Manhattan. People, as residents across the community, have expressed a desire to find market rate rental units in a walkable area between downtown City Park and Aggieville. This meets that huge demand for non-student housing in a major way, with over 50 new units coming online. Having that kind of inventory would encourage people to move to or stay in Manhattan. Third, by developing new residential property in the core of Manhattan, the city saves significantly on infrastructure as well as additional expenses that come with suburban sprawl, including expansion of fire and police services. Infill also saves additional expenditures for Raleigh County and USD 383. It is important to note that tonight's discussion would not bind the commission to any agreement and only gives the staff permission to continue to work with the developers on a solution for redevelopment as well as to answer questions of this key downtown property. We would encourage you to grant that permission. Projects like this are unique and don't come along very often. We have talked a great deal about the need for our community to grow and prosper economically. To see success in those areas, we have to be a community that welcomes and encourages private investment. This kind of project has the potential to snowball into other projects that turn the tide and change our trajectory on growth. We would ask you to look favorably on today's request and look forward to seeing a final proposal move forward to the commission at a later date. A couple other items I do want to address. My good friend Joe Knob, former chair of the chamber, I do believe very strongly that all incentives that we have should have a but-for clause. And in fact, when the gentleman that proposed today proposed to our organization, that was the first question we asked. And we believe very strongly that to get the kind of investment we're looking at here, that the but-for clause does apply. But I think that's a valid question and something that should be included on this proposal, as well as any proposal that comes in front of you for incentives. And any proposal that we have, you can assure that we believe that the but-for clause applies to that. So with that, I would stand for questions. Otherwise, thank you again for considering this.
Hello, my name is Bryson Benny. My wife and I live at 723 Houston Street, which is right across the street from this property. I think we wanted to express our support for the proposed change. The Commerce Bank building, with its bright lights and constant HVAC hum, has become a familiar beacon in our neighborhood. We tell our kids that it's our neighborhood's giant nightlight. And we believe that reducing the light and the noise pollution from this building would significantly improve our quality of life. We are pleased to see the plan to use the alley and close off the entrances from Houston Street. This will alleviate traffic and make our street safer. We would hope that a landscape barrier on the north side of Houston is considered to prevent headlights from shining into our homes. Incorporating more landscape and a natural barrier could also help further enhance the historic district's charm. Currently, a large unused parking lot with concrete parking lot islands diminishes the value of our homes, but a parking area with thoughtful screening and additional trees and greenery could create a more inviting and harmonious transition between the district and this property, while also preserving the unique character and setting of our homes. We hope that the city will support these improvements, improving our quality of life and creating a safer and more attractive space for current and future residents of the Houston Pierre Street Historic District. Thank you.
Thank you. You. Anybody?
Gary Olds, 3308 Frontier Circle. I know I'm a broken record. By the way, I apologize. Welcome, Danielle. I kind of blew that and spaced that off, but welcome back.
You get your 5 minutes.
Yeah, I understand. Ironically, my mother of my grandson texted me at 6:08 and said, we're picking him up. So
Good.
Okay, so anyway, this is an interesting concept. I really don't know as a taxpayer which way I go on this. I'm not in favor of like Joe, I'm not in favor of the tax abatements that's probably obvious. But I think you want to keep in mind a couple things, historically speaking. If you can run your videotape in your brain and you think about the shortstop on Tuttle Creek Boulevard and what used to be on the south side, and you think about the east side of Popeye's Chicken House, what's there now? Nothing. What was there before? A bank. Why would you demolish it? Cheaper property taxes. Cheaper to demolish it than to let it stand. I'm going to go out on a limb, and if this development doesn't go through in some way, shape, or form, with abatements or no abatements or delayed or whatever, that building's coming down. I could almost guarantee it. Why would you want to pay property taxes of roughly $78,000 a year for the next few years when you can probably take it down for, I don't know, $1 million or $500,000, or I don't even know what amount it would be. And it's probably going to come down. So its redevelopment is probably a good idea. I'm way out of my league if it comes to talking about architecture, so I probably ought to not say anything whatsoever, other than the fact that I guess that's something to consider. Jason, you went through your numbers really quick, so I couldn't take a stab at them, but it's my understanding as a mixed-use development under the Kansas statutes, the main floor would be taxed at 25% of its appraised value to accrete its assessed value. The upstairs is taxed at 11.5% of its appraised value to create its assessed value. So that tax is, I don't know about the 2 million, you gyrate the numbers, you're probably right in terms of the numbers. And you know, I hate to say this, but in the scope of Manhattan's budget, $2 million isn't really huge. That's a kind of an embarrassing thing to say. It is for me, but for the city of Manhattan, it's not huge. So maybe negotiating the abatement or tiering the abatement so that it, you know, starts out at one level 1 year and comes down, or whatever the case may be. Hutton has a very deep, and I'm going to say very positive, relationship with USD 475. You're probably aware that they're basically the design build company, and from everything I've heard, you know, they do a great job. No company's perfect, and they'll probably readily admit they're not perfect, but that's because of their subs, you know, and that's not their fault. So it's probably a good piece. I'm still a little confused on ownership. It sounded like Commerce Bank was going to be the tenant, and maybe there's an LLC that owns the property. It doesn't really matter to me as a taxpayer. I was just trying to clarify that. But I would suggest, as I said earlier, negotiate. Find a common ground that works for them and really works for you, meaning us as taxpayers, to find a common ground that will make the project go if it's right. Because like I said, I assure you 100%, no doubt in my mind, that building's coming down, one way or the other. So I guess it is all about the but for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gina Snyder, 3207 Valleydale. I haven't had a chance, we haven't had a chance as a board to really talk about this. We have met with Kyle and Mike, and they have offered to speak with the board in depth, so we're going to pursue that. I just want to make a couple of comments. Over the years, 20 years, 30 years, we've done some really big projects, and we've done some really perfectly, intentionally thought out, well done projects. I think this is one of them. I think we do have to work through all of the various points that so many people have brought up. I've been really impressed and proud to be a part of this community with all of the really good points that people have brought up about this project. I do want to say that whenever we can have a project that answers our needs, I think that's really imperative to look at in depth. We have housing needs in downtown. This addresses that. I realize in other parts of Manhattan we have a retail issue of vacancies. In downtown that is not the case. We are full in downtown. I don't know that we would even necessarily have any space to lease available if we have businesses or at least anchors already wanting to be there should this project go forward, but any retail space that we can get is great. I mean, it's a good problem for us to have this problem right now. We have had this problem for several years. So I just wanted to really just support that if we can do a project that takes care of our needs, I think it's important. And Beyond Tomorrow plan addresses just this type of mixed use, incrementally developed, thoughtful, small, not over the top. I think that's something that we really, really need to consider. Thank you.
How many more people would like to speak? I was going to ask who wants to take a break. It's 8:11. We'll come back at 2:30.
Got the power.
I know. And everybody knows. Let's get back to order. I think a couple more people wanted to speak. Would those people who'd like to speak, speak?
Mel Borst, 1918 Humboldt Street, and as a longtime resident, I have always admired the what I remember as the Union National Bank building, and but I really haven't really appreciated it until I learned of the threat to its existence here recently, and after I learned of that when a local preservation successful preservation developer offered to purchase the property to convert to residential upstairs and keep it available for the Commerce Bank on the main floor, which seemed like a very nice readaptation. But I guess developers and redevelopers all have their perspectives on what's going to work for them. But in this case, as you've heard, there's consideration for tax money, and that does change perspective that I know you're all seriously considering, and I appreciate that. The new plan does push the mass of the building, the new building, out to the street, and this will give us a much different feel for that block of historic buildings on both sides of the street, and the neighbors, the bank on the corner next to it, and then across to the west, the beautiful building that the attorneys are in. But we see this kind of infill development elsewhere. I think that's been mentioned as well in communities, but I don't know if they usually replace iconic architecture that we're going to be losing. The existing building, if you study the massing of it, has the single level surround on the property with the tower in the middle, which pushes that height quite a bit back and on all sides, and that's a really a very sensitive design, I believe, that we're going to definitely miss with the if the new building takes its place that is out to the street with 5 floors. As such, the existing building fits well with all of its surroundings, the historic church across the street, and other historic structures, commercial structures around it. And I'm a little puzzled that our planners are citing this new replacement architecture to address the land use plan's development of sense of space, because the existing architecture surely does that quite well. The new architecture, as I said, will start to make the street feel like a canyon. And we've seen the effect of this up on Bluemont, north of Aggieville, with the new buildings crowding the street there. I do agree that the resident on Houston Street has an excellent point that when the parking lots were established on the north side of the street from them years ago without any landscaping, and with their exposure to all of the light from the business there, the building, it was a real oversight. And no matter what happens with this proposal, I believe that addressing that problem with lack of landscaping for the Houston Street historic homes along there would be very important. Thank you.
Joyce Bright, 1217 Colorado, and I'm here to speak in favor, rather than tearing down the building, renovating it. I think it can be renovated rather than tearing everything down, started from scratch. And the reason I've been watching this from the meeting from home, so I'm kind of following along. I know the developers are from Wichita, so I used to live there. I lived there for several years and kind of familiar with what's going on, so forgive the Wichita. There is a building in downtown Wichita that has been renovated twice that I know of. We're talking about, it's now Player Piano Lofts at 704 East Douglas. And it used to be Player Piano Company. And I own a player piano, and so I was there many times when I lived there, and when I came back, when I went back to Wichita, I would always go in there. So I have been in the building many times, and I knew the owner, Darrell Armstrong. And so at the time, he was getting older, and the building was starting to deteriorate. And I can tell you, and I have been on the upper floors, there's main floor and 4 upper floors, so it's a 5-floor building. And some of the things in there, I remember one time we went up to the 5th floor, and there was this old service elevator that's kind of scary. It would not pass OSHA standards today, let's put it that way. And some scary things in there that really needed to be fixed up. Wood floors and just old things. Well, that has now been turned into condominiums, say, apartments. And so that was actually the second renovation. I brought this is Wichita, it's history of Wichita. This one has a picture of the building, same building. In 1913, they were elevating the railroad tracks that go across Douglas to go to Union Station. And remember I said that there were 5 stories in the building? Well, this one only shows 3. So at some time, there were 2 more stories added to that building. And so that was the first renovation. And if you go there today, you see the Player Piano Lofts, you can still see the paint on the east side of the building that has the name of the shop that was there in 1913. So if you can renovate a building twice, I mean, why can't we renovate this building, the old Commerce Bank building? And that's right. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll turn to the commissioners for Commissioner. Oh, sorry.
Amber Starling, 408 Houston Street. Because it has not been noted yet, and it should be, the city banks with commerce, and that is a possible conflict of interest. I'm helping a beloved friend to access resources to which she's entitled, and it baffles me how much harder it is for a single disabled grandma raising her 6-year-old grandchild to get on Section 8 housing than it is for a developer to get $2 million from you. We're investing in developers for the tax value, but then forgiving their taxes. We have money for private developers, but not for public services and infrastructure. Will the commission please pick a lane? I don't disagree with Hutton's overall plan. We need more apartments and more mixed-use zoning. The layout is remarkably efficient, the traffic flow is greatly improved, and the exterior architecture has a timeless beauty to it. However, We don't need luxury apartments. We need workforce housing, but you don't invest in that. Hutton is an $86.9 million a year company. Are they not profiting from the apartments and from the commercial leases? What more incentive do they need? I will say this plainly, even you could say, like you're 5. We want you to spend public funds on publicly owned property and infrastructure. We want you to spend private funds on private property and infrastructure. Thank you.
Dare I say we're done? Commissioners?
Okay, I'll start. I'm for actually moving forward with the project and to keep seeing what we can come up with. I think that's a good question, but for this, I would predict it'll probably sit there empty or with very few tenants. And then Commerce will have to make some decision on whether they want to pay. These aren't their numbers, because I actually looked at this building for a different project, and the people I talked to said it would be $600,000 to $800,000 to tear that thing down. And I walked all the floors with Sean. He gave me all the drawings, went through it to try to remodel that. Those floors, each one of them that go up is like if you really measure it all the way around, about 3,000 square feet. But then you've got where the elevators come off, try to configure that to do something is extremely difficult. Also, the building conditions, the windows, the HVAC, there's only one section, I think, with small section with sprinklers. It's just a very difficult building. And I don't claim to be an architect, but I've talked to a number. It'd be very difficult to do something with that building. And, you know, I don't think an opportunity like this is going to come along often to be able to do this type of development. And I think in downtown, it has a large chance of success, already has 2 anchors in it. As Gina said, they're good with the retail down there. They'll be able to fill it up. We could really use those apartments down there. And yes, they're high-end, but we need high-end as well as everything else. And I think it will be a good draw, as Jason said, it could be a spark for other things to happen downtown. Having said all that, we do need transparency. I say going forward means we're going to negotiate, going to figure out. We have to see how the numbers all work out. Obviously, they want to develop it. I've given a lot of reasons why I think we should do it. We both want to do something, but we have to make sure both of us get a good deal out of this in the end. I really fear if we don't jump on this opportunity, it'll be years down the road, and it's, you know, again, it'll be up to Commerce to decide. But I think they're going to have a hard time renting it and a hard time doing anything with the building as it is today. I've had a lot of people talk to me, a lot of people who don't want to do it because it's just the plain thing having to do with the government money going into it. And I'm usually, you know, known as a fiscal conservative and all that, but I think this is a deal we need to move forward on.
Thank you, Joan.
I'm going to agree with John on this one. He summed it up nicely. I do think what Brayson brought up about looking at the parking and stuff, including that. The only kind of design question I had is if it made sense to continue the parking along Poyntz, if there's a way to work with Landmark to, I don't know if we can do that, because that's where that protected, or that right turn is. It just feels like wasted then if we already have the protected right turn on the other. So that's just a suggestion. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Yeah, we can definitely have our engineers take a look.
I got some questions. Sean, I know you said you've been here for about 8 years. To your knowledge, has Commerce invested in maintenance or renovations of that building?
Commissioner Alpelt, we have. I was sharing with Jamie a little bit earlier that the plan for that building has been a conversation that I've had all 8 years that I've been with Commerce Bank. And we always have things pop up, just like any other aging building would have, right? So the comments around the HVAC, we know that there could stand to be a nice major improvement to that. It's expensive. I think U.S. Engineering has maybe been the most frequent visitor to that particular building than even some of our clients. So I say that somewhat in jest, but very accurately true. We do have window issues with that building. Most people that had looked at that building when we had it for sale a couple of years ago came back and said, when you start adding up all the pieces that you need to do to kind of button up and make it ready for some type of a remodel, it's too expensive. You can't even give us the building for us to make it work, has been some of the commentary that we've heard.
Okay. And then I guess my question, my big question for the project in general, I hear that you know, the rents would be too high too high to be marketable in Manhattan without this. But is it that the project wouldn't be profitable at all, or is it that it wouldn't be profitable enough? That's my big, I think we really need to see those margins with and without this so that we can have some type of basis from which to negotiate if we are. Frankly, it just doesn't, the building itself doesn't excite me. I guess, I don't know, the word I would use to describe it is kind of milquetoast. I've been to this other building in Wichita. It's almost identical to this. And so to me, it doesn't really enhance the identity, especially compared with what we have. So it's going to take a lot for me to come around on this.
When we built the town center mall in 1981 or something like that, when none of you were born or anything like that, anyway, we insisted that they develop and design a mall that was really not your standard big box area. There's a lovely atrium in it. You have a feeling of light and openness that you don't have in most malls, where you just go into. This is a really important piece of architecture on Poyntz Avenue, and I'm sure you're quite a ways along in designing and that kind of thing. But we do have at K-State an outstanding architecture department. It seems to me there ought to be some way to put some memories of the building that's there that aren't just an elevator shaft going up. The east side particularly is rather unappealing. I have no problem with IRBs. I've gotten to the point where I really do have problems with TIF districts. I mean, I know it's not a TIF, but it's the same idea. Revenue bonds are one thing, but we keep taking these groups and giving the property tax sort of away, and that doesn't just affect the city. We are also doing the counties and the school districts, and that in turn makes them have to raise their property tax levels, their mill levy. I agree with someone that said it's just going to be another big box on points, and I really would like to see you stretch yourselves a little bit and come back to us with something that's really kind of welcome to Manhattan, welcome to Poyntz Avenue. This is really something worth seeing. You know, the Arthur Green building next door to it is an interesting building, and as we said, the buildings across the street. So that's kind of where I am. I'm supportive, but I'd really like to see something with pizzazz.
I just want to make one other point about the opportunities that don't come along. This would be our second opportunity that's come along in 2 or 3 years. The first opportunity is currently still an empty lot. So I really want us to be very, very cautious about this.
Okay, so do you feel that's direction? Danielle, do you have any Then I would entertain a move to adjourn.
I move we adjourn the October 15th, 2024 City Commission meeting.
Second?
Oh, that was fast. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Minton,
Yes, yes, very much so.
Mayor Pro Tem McCullough,
Yes.
Commissioner Opel,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.